Classical and modern criticism refer to two distinct approaches in the analysis and evaluation of literature, art, and other forms of cultural expression. These approaches have evolved over time, reflecting changes in philosophical, cultural, and intellectual perspectives. Classical criticism. Classical criticism, also known as traditional or ancient criticism, originated in ancient Greece and Rome. It laid the foundation for many critical theories and principles that have shaped the study of literature and the arts for centuries. Some key aspects of classical criticism include mimetic theory. Ancient critics, such as Aristotle, focused on the concept of mimesis, which refers to the imitation or representation of nature in art. Aristotle's Poetics is a classical work that explores the principles of tragedy and epic poetry. Unity of action, time, and place. Classical critics emphasize the importance of maintaining unity in a work of art. Aristotle, for instance, advocated for the unity of action, time, and place in dramatic works. Catharsis. Aristotle introduced the idea of catharsis, suggesting that art should evoke emotions in the audience and provide a purgation or cleansing of those emotions. Modern criticism. Modern criticism emerged in the late 19th and 20th centuries, marked by a departure from the rigid structures and principles of classical criticism. It reflects a more diverse and experimental approach to analyzing literature and the arts. Some key features of modern criticism include formalism. Formalist critics, such as the Russian formalists and new critics, focused on the internal structure of the literary work rather than external factors like historical context or author's biography. They emphasized close reading and analysis of the text itself. Psychoanalytic criticism. Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic theories influenced critics like Freudian literary critics who explored the subconscious elements of literature, examining characters and symbols as representations of psychological states. Structuralism and post-structuralism. Structuralist critics, like Roland Barthes and Claude Lévi-Strauss, analyze the underlying structures in language and culture. Post-structuralist, such as Jacques Derrida and Michel Foucault, questioned the stability of meanings and emphasized the role of power in language. Feminist criticism. This critical approach emerged in the mid-20th century and focuses on the representation of women in literature, questioning gender roles, stereotypes, and power dynamics. Cultural criticism. Modern critics often consider the broader cultural and social contexts in which literary works are produced. This includes examining issues related to race, class, gender, and identity. Both classical and modern criticism have contributed significantly to the understanding and interpretation of literature and the arts. While classical criticism provided foundational principles, modern criticism expanded the scope of analysis, considering diverse perspectives and challenging established norms. The choice of approach often depends on the specific goals and interests of the critic or scholar. Let's explore an example from the field of literature to illustrate the differences between classical and modern criticism. Example: William Shakespeare's play, Hamlet. Classical criticism. In a classical approach, a critic might analyze Hamlet using Aristotle's principles from Poetics. The critic may focus on elements such as mimetic theory, examining how Hamlet imitates or represents human nature and tragic events, adhering to Aristotle's concept of mimesis. Unity of action, time, and place, assessing whether the play adheres to the classical unity of action, where the plot has a single central theme, and whether it observes unity of time and place. Catharsis, analyzing how the tragedy of Hamlet's character and the events in the play evoke emotions in the audience, leading to a purgation of those emotions. A classical critic might praise Hamlet for its exploration of tragic themes, the well-defined central action, and its ability to evoke pity and fear in the audience through Hamlet's struggles. Modern criticism. In a modern approach, a critic might use various lenses to analyze Hamlet. For example, formalism, focusing on the language, symbolism, and structural elements within the play without necessarily delving into historical or biographical context. The critic may analyze Hamlet's soliloquies, exploring the nuances of language and imagery. Psychoanalytic criticism, examining the characters in Hamlet through a Freudian lens. Hamlet's complex relationship with his mother, his internal conflicts, and his behavior may be interpreted in terms of Freud's theories on the unconscious mind. Feminist criticism, exploring the representation of female characters like Ophelia and Gertrude, and analyzing how gender roles and power dynamics are portrayed in the play. Cultural criticism. Considering the broader societal context of Shakespeare's time, the critic might discuss how Hamlet reflects or challenges the cultural norms, values, and political climate of the Elizabethan era. A modern critic might appreciate the ambiguity and complexity of characters in Hamlet, examining the play through various critical lenses to uncover layers of meaning beyond traditional structural analysis. In this way, the example of Hamlet illustrates how the same literary work can be approached and analyzed differently through classical and modern critical perspectives, each providing unique insights into the text. Let's summarize the main features of classical and modern criticism. Classical criticism. Mimetic theory. Emphasis on the imitation or representation of nature in art, as seen in Aristotle's concept of mimesis. Unity of action, time, and place. Adherence to the principles of maintaining a single central action, unity of time, and unity of place within a work of art. Catharsis. The goal of evoking emotions in the audience and providing a purgation or cleansing of those emotions, as proposed by Aristotle. Structural guidelines. Emphasis on adhering to specific structures and forms in literature and art. Objective analysis. Strives for an objective and systematic analysis of literary works, often focusing on the formal aspects of the text. Modern criticism. Formalism. Focus on the internal structure of the literary work, emphasizing close reading and analysis of the text itself rather than external factors. Diversity of approaches. Incorporation of various critical lenses and approaches, such as psychoanalytic, feminist, post-structuralist, and cultural perspectives. Interdisciplinary influences. Integration of ideas from other disciplines, including psychology, sociology, linguistics, and cultural studies. Contextual consideration. Examination of the broader cultural, historical, and social contexts in which literary works are produced. Subjective interpretation. Acknowledgement of the subjective nature of interpretation, allowing for multiple readings and perspectives on a single work. Challenges to tradition. Willingness to challenge established norms, question authority, and explore unconventional or experimental forms of expression. Focus on identity and representation. Consideration of issues related to identity, representation, and power dynamics, especially in relation to marginalized groups. These features highlight the evolution from a more rigid and structured approach in classical criticism to a more flexible and diverse approach in modern criticism, reflecting changes in cultural, intellectual, and philosophical perspectives over time. The differences between classical and modern criticism are rooted in their distinct historical contexts, philosophical foundations, and approaches to analyzing literature and the arts. Here are some key differences. Philosophical foundation. Classical criticism. Grounded in the philosophical ideas of ancient Greek and Roman thinkers, especially Aristotle. Classical critics often focused on concepts like mimesis, imitation of nature, unity, and catharsis. Modern criticism draws from a diverse range of philosophical and theoretical frameworks, including structuralism, post-structuralism, psychoanalysis, feminism, and cultural studies. Modern critics are less bound by a single, overarching philosophical foundation. Approach to structure. Classical criticism emphasizes adherence to specific structures and forms, as seen in Aristotle's principles of unity of action, time, and place. There is a preference for clear, well-defined structures in literary works. Modern criticism often embraces a more flexible approach to structure. Formalist critics may focus on the internal structure of the text, while others may explore unconventional or experimental forms of expression. Emphasis on context. Classical criticism tends to prioritize the intrinsic qualities of the work itself over external factors. Historical and cultural contexts are considered, but the focus remains on the work's inherent qualities. Modern criticism places a strong emphasis on considering the broader cultural, historical, and social contexts in which literary works are produced. Contextual factors are often integral to the analysis. Critical lenses. Classical criticism typically employs a more straightforward, objective analysis of the formal aspects of literature. The focus is on understanding the work in relation to classical principles. Modern criticism embraces a variety of critical lenses and approaches. Critics may use psychoanalytic, feminist, structuralist, post-structuralist, or cultural perspectives, allowing for a more multidimensional analysis. View on authority and tradition. Classical criticism tends to respect and adhere to established norms and traditions. Authority in literature is often recognized and valued. Modern criticism often challenges traditional norms and questions established authority. There is a willingness to explore unconventional ideas, experimental forms, and to critique existing power structures. Objective versus subjective analysis. Classical criticism strives for a more objective and systematic analysis, often focusing on the formal elements of the text. Modern criticism acknowledges the subjective nature of interpretation. Critics recognize that multiple readings and perspectives can coexist, and there is a greater acceptance of subjectivity in the analytical process. These differences highlight the evolution in critical thought from the more rigid and rule-based approach of classical criticism to the diverse, flexible, and often interdisciplinary nature of modern criticism. The objectives of classical and modern criticism reflect the different philosophical foundations and goals associated with each approach. Here are the general objectives for each. Classical criticism. Preservation of tradition. Classical criticism seeks to preserve and uphold the literary and artistic traditions established by ancient Greek and Roman thinkers, particularly Aristotle. It values adherence to established norms and structures. Emphasis on form. Classical critics aim to analyze and evaluate the formal aspects of literary works, emphasizing principles such as unity of action, time, and place. The focus is on the structure and organization of the work. Achievement of mimesis. The primary objective is to achieve mimesis, the imitation or representation of nature in art. Classical critics believe that art should reflect the natural order and evoke emotional responses in the audience. Catharsis. Classical criticism aims to achieve catharsis, the purification or purgation of emotions through the experience of tragedy. The emotional impact of the work is considered crucial for its success. Objective analysis. Classical criticism aspires to objective and systematic analysis, often using a set of established criteria to evaluate the merits of a work. Modern criticism. Exploration and experimentation. Modern criticism seeks to explore new ideas, challenge established norms, and experiment with different forms of expression. There is an openness to unconventional and innovative approaches to literature and the arts. Diverse perspectives. Modern critics aim to incorporate diverse perspectives and methodologies, drawing from various fields such as psychology, sociology, linguistics, and cultural studies. This allows for a more comprehensive and multidimensional analysis. Contextual understanding. Understanding and interpreting works within their broader cultural, historical, and social contexts is a key objective. Modern critics recognize the impact of external factors on the creation and reception of art. Subjective interpretation. Acknowledging the subjective nature of interpretation, modern criticism allows for multiple readings and perspectives on a single work. There is an acceptance of the idea that meaning can be fluid and context-dependent. Critical engagement with power structures. Modern criticism often involves a critical examination of power dynamics, social structures, and representation. Critics may analyze how literature reflects or challenges issues related to identity, gender, race, and class. Interdisciplinary integration. Modern critics aim to integrate insights from various disciplines to enrich the analysis of literature and the arts. This interdisciplinary approach broadens the scope of critical inquiry. Questioning authority. Modern criticism is characterized by a willingness to question authority and challenge established traditions. There is a recognition that perspectives on literature and art are subject to change and evolution. In summary, while classical criticism aims to preserve traditions, emphasize form, and achieve mimesis and catharsis, modern criticism seeks to explore, experiment, incorporate diverse perspectives, and critically engage with the broader contexts and power dynamics that influence artistic creation and interpretation. The importance and relevance of classical and modern criticism lie in their contributions to the understanding, interpretation, and appreciation of literature, art, and cultural expressions. Each approach has its own significance and addresses different aspects of the creative process and its reception. Classical criticism. Preservation of tradition. Classical criticism plays a crucial role in preserving and transmitting literary and artistic traditions. By upholding classical principles, it helps maintain a connection with historical roots and foundational concepts in the arts. Understanding form and structure. Classical criticism emphasizes the importance of form and structure in literary works. This focus provides a framework for analyzing the organization and coherence of artistic creations. Catharsis and emotional impact. The concept of catharsis, central to classical criticism, highlights the emotional impact of art. This emphasis on evoking emotions contributes to the power of storytelling and its ability to resonate with audiences on a deep, visceral level. Establishment of standards. Classical criticism sets standards for excellence in literature and art. It provides a benchmark against which works can be evaluated, fostering a sense of quality and craftsmanship. Modern criticism. Flexibility and innovation. Modern criticism's willingness to explore new ideas, challenge established norms, and experiment with different forms allows for artistic innovation and evolution. It encourages creators to push boundaries and think beyond traditional structures. Diverse perspectives. Modern criticism recognizes and values diverse perspectives, fostering inclusivity and representation in literature and the arts. This inclusivity helps bring forth voices and narratives that might have been marginalized or ignored in traditional approaches. Contextual understanding. By emphasizing the importance of cultural, historical, and social contexts, modern criticism enriches the interpretation of works. It allows for a more nuanced understanding of how art is shaped by and shapes the world around it. Subjective interpretation. Modern criticism acknowledges the subjective nature of interpretation, embracing the idea that different readers and audiences may derive varied meanings from a single work. This openness accommodates a wide range of perspectives. Critical engagement with power structures. Modern criticism engages critically with power dynamics, addressing issues of identity, representation, and social justice. This critic perspective contributes to a deeper understanding of how literature and art intersect with broader societal concerns. Interdisciplinary insights. The integration of insights from various disciplines in modern criticism provides a holistic understanding of literature and art. This interdisciplinary approach allows for a richer exploration of the complexities inherent in cultural expressions. Adaptability to change. Modern criticism's willingness to adapt to changing societal norms and values ensures its continued relevance. It allows for the evolution of critical frameworks in response to shifts in cultural, political, and intellectual landscapes. In conclusion, both classical and modern criticism play vital roles in shaping our appreciation of literature and the arts. Classical criticism provides a historical foundation and sets standards, while modern criticism allows for adaptability, inclusivity, and a more dynamic engagement with the ever-changing nature of artistic expression and cultural contexts.